Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform when it comes to anything to do with entrepreneurs. It's a very exciting panel that we have for you here tonight. Two women in finance who've broken the glass ceiling, leading teams, talking about money and putting their money where their mouth is, perhaps. Let me welcome on the show first up. We have Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO of Edelweiss Asset Management. I also have with me Hardika Shah, founder and CEO of Kinara Capital. Having the two of you joining us here on the show today. I want to start by talking about managing money. Both of you have a different experience, or expertise really, when it comes to professional capacities about how an entrepreneur should be approaching their finance. Let me come to you first, Hardika. If you can talk about perhaps for 2021, given everything that's happened in the past, given your own experience, if you were to talk to an entrepreneur through this interview about how they should be approaching their money, what would it be?
Well, so just to contextualize this, I founded Kinara Capital to essentially transform lives, livelihoods, and local economies of those small businesses in India. And a lot of my lessons of entrepreneurship, while I am an entrepreneur, have come from these small micro business owners who, in this pandemic, have shown us that resilience is of utmost, innate entrepreneurial character that is required. And what I've learned from them and what I see in businesses that, as we look around and what is happening to us, one is that to be nimble and to hang on to every penny you have, because the capital reserves is what is getting small businesses through. So when you're not over leveraged, when you're not chasing growth in exchange for profitability, that is an important lesson, I would say, that we have been taught through this pandemic, is that if you have the profitability, you have the ability to come back to fight another day and stay in business for longer.
Radhika, you have an interesting story as well when it comes to you being in finance. I'll come to the personal side of it in just a bit, but first up, if it was your advice to entrepreneurs about how to manage their money better and their approach really to finance, what would it be?
So most of my experiences are shaped by being a money manager and also being someone who ran an entrepreneurial money management venture. I've straddled both worlds here. I think there are two very core pieces of advice. As Hardika said, entrepreneurship is about hanging on and sort of being robust and resilient. But in order to do that, I think your portfolios have to be robust and resilient. There are two pieces of advice I would give. One is very carefully think about the kind of risk that you're taking in your personal finances. As an entrepreneur, you're taking a significant amount of risk career-wise. You're taking a significant amount of risk business-wise. I mean, essentially, you are holding, as an entrepreneur, promoter of a small business, equity of a micro-cap company. So that is your core asset allocation in finance. Make the rest of your portfolio conservative. Think about the fact that there will be years and years where you may not be able to take income back from the business. I've gone through this myself. And how will your personal finances be able to do that? The second thing that's very important in entrepreneurship is to be liquid. So don't lock up too much money in illiquid assets. Try to be as liquid as possible, because entrepreneurship, for everything that's good about it, is very, very uncertain. And the thing that hurts people the most in a crisis is liquidity. So keep liquid.
2020 perhaps has not definitely been a year of dreams for entrepreneurs, but and this is again to the two of you, do you think that 2021 is going to be a much better year? Have you perhaps started seeing a recovery already? We were speaking with the Chief Economic Advisor here, the Leaders of Tomorrow. We've spoken with the MD and CEO of IDFC First Bank. Every expert saying we've started seeing the first shoots really of recovery. Would the two of you agree?
No, I would tend to agree. I think some signs of recovery are there. I think when you talk to promoters, even in the most affected businesses like sectors like hospitality, you're starting to see occupancy rates up, you're starting to see consumption rates back up. Corporate earnings are, surprising everyone on the positive side. And I think it will only get better. The vaccine news will be an accelerator. I do believe that while 2020 has been a tough year for entrepreneurs, 2021 will get better. But the Indian entrepreneur is also a tremendously resilient one. I think it's a great statistics that nearly half of the Fortune 500 was actually born out of a crisis. So I do believe that while COVID has been very stressful for entrepreneurs, COVID has also given birth to a lot of new entrepreneurial ventures. I mean, a lot of good entrepreneurship comes out of a crisis.
I agree that there definitely is a sign, or definitely are signs of recovery showing up. I think, though, that this is such a global phenomenon that capital flows are constricted. And a lot of, when you talk about entrepreneurs, we are reliant on capital to come to our businesses to help us grow our businesses. And when there is, when the capital flow itself is constricted and there is tremendous opportunity for distressed assets, or even in the geography for capital to move cross countries, it is going to be that much harder for entrepreneurs, Indian entrepreneurs, any entrepreneur, frankly, to be able to get access to that capital. So, my one piece of advice would be that anyone who is starting the entrepreneurial journey today or for 2021, just allow much more time to turn the corner on getting access to that capital to grow your business.
So I'm trying to get a sense of which sectors perhaps could see the biggest growth when it comes to 2021. The general expert opinion is that manufacturing has started seeing that uptick. Services is going to take just a little more time because of the whole aspect of social distancing, etc. Maybe I can come to you first, Radhika. It's a no-brainer. Technology is going to rule the roost when it comes to any sector, but any specific sectors you are willing to put your money on?
So I think, it will be vast, and I think, entrepreneurs can't cherry pick sectors ultimately. I think technology is one. I think lifestyle will be another one. Spend post-COVID on healthcare will definitely be important. So healthcare and healthcare services, lifestyle, I think people's general investment in healthcare will be a big one. And technology also doesn't just mean consumer technology. Technology also means technology that is making businesses more efficient. I think one of the big takeaways for most businesses post-COVID is that you have to be more robust, you have to be more efficient. So I think all of us will be making significant investments in technology that makes us more efficient. So that will be another area for entrepreneurs.
Traditional sectors I'm seeing are getting disrupted. For example, something as simple as transportation and logistics has been operating in a certain way for so long, and all of a sudden people are recognizing that this long distance transportation needs to be broken down in different ways, so that last mile logistics, last mile delivery, is changing, right? And so I do think that even traditional areas that have seen a certain path are going to, everyone's looking at everything with a whole new set of lenses we haven't had during COVID. And it might bring a whole new set of opportunities in areas that we have long forgotten. Maybe, even pizza boxes will get reinvented. I don't know. 2021 will be exciting for sure.
I want to now talk about each of your personal journeys. Radhika, yours is a well-documented one, but if you can talk about how you really, entered into the world of finance. Hardika, you as well. These businesses are traditionally seen as male-dominated. Maybe something from your personal experience of how you really made it in this field, and therefore use it to talk to women entrepreneurs watching this interview about what you want them to keep in mind.
I think most journeys are some combination of luck, being in the right place at the right time and capitalizing on the opportunities that come to you. I always get this question about how did you enter finance? Well, I went to a finance school, but I didn't grow up wanting to do finance. I don't think many of us grew up thinking that we would be what we are today. And I got my first job at a hedge fund on Wall Street, was at McKinsey for some time. And then I came back to India. The entrepreneurial bug bit me in 2009 to start a small asset management firm. And I think entrepreneurship, Hardika, and is about also just growing things bit by bit. I mean, that's every entrepreneur's story, starting with a small quantum of 25 lakhs, raising it to 200 crores, and then selling it to Edelweiss. I think at some level that is everybody's story. So I always tell aspiring entrepreneurs and women that get started. I think it's great to build castles in the sky, but I've never dreamed of the journey of 1 to 100. I've always said, let me start with one, get to two, at two, figure out how to get to five, and hopefully I'll have more knowledge at five and 10 and get to 100. So I think that's been my journey in a nutshell.
I couldn't agree more. There is my journey is similar in the sense I started with a problem I identified that was very large, which is about how do you get access to capital to micro and small businesses without land or property collateral, and starting with a simple problem like that and solving for that and setting small realistic milestones and goals to get there. And so we talk about growth versus profitability. I focused on profitability partly because the kind of business I run, which is a non-banking finance institution, requires you to demonstrate that, but also because I wasn't sure how long could you go without doing that. So setting sort of small milestones along the way to reach from both from a capital raise perspective and customer perspective to get to the next level. Today we are in 6 states, 101 branches, 50,000 plus loans done. So it feels larger, but if you asked me 8-9 years ago, I would have said my goal was just to get to the next milestone. And today also, I feel like we're not done yet. The one question you asked about women, I do think this is a very important question. It's an important question globally, but it certainly is very, very true in India. And the way I have looked at it is, I went to solve a problem. I took the woman part of it as part of the solution that needed to be done, both from a customer perspective, so making sure that we promote women entrepreneurs, create a special program to promote women entrepreneurs from the loans we give, but also to create an inclusive organization internally. So 50% of my management team is women, 75% of the CXOs are women. We have women in every possible function in the organization, including field functions, whether they are loan officers, risk officers, legal officers, recovery officers, whatever the roles, functions might be. And that requires a lot more effort to build an organization around the principles of inclusivity and building all your process procedures and recruiting methods to do that.
Ladies, I have to take a very quick break on that note, but we'll be back on the other side with more insights from our experts on managing your finances better in 2021. Back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, a special conversation with Radhika Gupta and Hardika Shah talking about managing your finances as an entrepreneur. The two of you, of course, are unfortunately rarities, women in the finance world. Most women entrepreneurs who speak to us, and we travel to 20 cities across the country. We've been doing that for the past 8 years, meeting with entrepreneurs. Whenever we have a woman entrepreneur in the room, she talks about how difficult it is for her to raise funds versus her male counterparts. Some of them have even suggested that perhaps we should have women fund managers. Perhaps they would lend to us more easily. Do you think those are the solutions? This is not an India problem alone, but for an Indian woman entrepreneur, how do you think she should perhaps be selling herself differently if she's looking at raising funds?
No, look, it's a tough problem. I think women in any industry don't have it easy, whether it's women entrepreneurs or professionals. And I think some of it is kicking the gender out of your head, because the more you obsess about it, to be honest, the more it becomes a sticking point. I think if you are building a good business, solving a genuine problem and doing something for customers, you will find your place maybe a little later. Few pieces of advice I would say in terms of capital raising. It is very important for women to go out and network, and it is important not to be afraid of rejection and keep asking. I mean, capital raising is not a fun exercise, but you have to go out and do it. I do think the world is becoming more and more cognizant. I mean, there is this whole trend around ESG that is taking over the fund management industry also, which is saying that you need more diversity in boardrooms, in the kind of management teams, in the investments that you have. So I do think the world will get better and better for women entrepreneurs raising capital. But the fact is, you can't be afraid of rejection, and you have to go out there, make yourself visible, and keep asking.
Let me just add to that. I think that the one thing that happens early on, and to picking up from what Radhika is saying about the rejection point, is that we start hearing the no's, and then start wondering what we need to fix to get to the yes. The thing that we need to fix in my mind is actually let the no's be where they are and keep being our true authentic selves. Because ultimately, if you start trying to be something you're not, you're only just misleading yourself and others, and it's not going to get anywhere in the long run. But if you hang on to what you believe in, why you believe in it, and be who you are, and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, eventually those doors do open, right? I just, in my own personal journey, I'd never worked in India. I left to go to the US to do my undergrad. I came back to India after 23 years working overseas. So raising capital in India, I had no connections, no inroads. And let me tell you, you just have to be persistent with the no's and keep telling why you are doing what you're doing, and somebody will listen.
As we're running out of time on this panel, this is a question to the two of you. I do want to talk on some of the macroeconomic sort of indicators and factors that are at play as we speak. One is the concerns really around GDP, and the second is an announcement by the central government as far as the production-linked incentive scheme is concerned for businesses, and its impact particularly for small businesses, because the effort at least is to protect domestic manufacturing. Hardika, let me come to you first. Most experts who've spoken with us said, great announcement as far as the headlines are concerned on PLI, but we have to wait to see the technicalities and how that's going to work, because it's crucial how it's actually going to get implemented. Do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I think that the headlines are right in that we do want to see the details of the implementation, but I will tell you what it has definitely done. 60% of my customer base is micro manufacturing, producing maybe 5-6 lakhs worth of monthly turnover, and a scheme like this of tremendous value, because all of a sudden you're finding a small business owner can say that I have now an avenue to grow my top line. Today we are talking a lot about contraction this year because of COVID, and we're all trying to find ways to do that. So I think the government is on the right path.
Radhika, I want to talk to you on the GDP figures that we're looking at this point. Even as we're seeing a bit of recovery, what are your concerns that there could possibly be a further contraction on that?
So I think the GDP figures, look, we were all coming into Q1 and Q2 with full lockdown, expecting, tough GDP numbers. So I don't think what you've seen has disappointed, people. I think, and that's why markets have held up the way that they have held up. I think the big concern, if there is any now, is the one around the second phase of COVID and whether we will go into lockdown again. A couple of states, including Maharashtra, are already having conversations about lockdown. So I think that remains the big concern, that as the economy is opening up, if you go back into lockdown mode, then you're taking us 5 steps behind, just as all businesses are feeling that they're coming out of this. So I think that's the number one concern.
I do want to talk about, for any business, you have to build something that lasts for the long term, but particularly in both of you offline have spoken to me about the need for building businesses which are robust, particularly where younger entrepreneurs are concerned, and that's something that you were discussing with me, Hardika. So maybe I'll come to you first. Your advice about building a business that is robust and that lasts.
The one big point of advice I have is that we need to be humble through the process. Once you start reaching milestones, you start believing the story around yourself. And what you really need to do is constantly break things apart internally and constantly look at what is breaking externally to rebuild. So the biggest point is we need to learn how to build and rebuild constantly, organizationally, and through the ecosystem.
I would add to that, and I would just, take from what Hardika had said earlier, that capital is becoming harder and harder to get by. And I think we need to, as entrepreneurs, not forget the basics of business. The basics of business are being cost conscious because capital is hard to come by. To make sure that your unit economics are solid. I think in the early days of growth, we compromise unit economics, and then it's a long story down. And I think the third is, and this is against the grain of entrepreneurship, not to be over obsessed with growth. Consistency of growth is important rather than unsustainable growth, because any kind of growth that is super exciting and super unsustainable will be tested in a period like COVID. And I think robust businesses don't collapse in a a year like COVID either.
My last question to the two of you, Radhika, you can have the final word. You can go first, Radha. How much money should one perhaps be looking at raising, and at what point of time? That's something that entrepreneurs are constantly grappling with. Now, even as that is happening, if you had one piece of advice that you want to leave our entrepreneurs with, what would that be?
So I think two great questions. One is that I don't think one should get obsessed with the kind of money that one is raising, the headlines about raising X and X valuation, etc. I think one should focus on raising the money that you need and raising it at fair terms with people who are going to be good partners in the long term. Don't worry about the headlines. This business is super obsessed about the headlines. And the advice for entrepreneurs, as I said, is that, disruption gives you the best opportunities, and you're sitting in a time of disruption. But use this time to really build a sustainable business. And I'll say that again and again.
Yeah, you were mentioning that even as entrepreneurs are getting, more and more mature, and the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem is getting more mature, investors on their part are also getting a little more competitive to be able to find the right businesses. So your word of advice, or call it what you want, entrepreneurs in 2021, what do you want to leave them with when it comes to building businesses that last, when it comes to raising money at the right time, when it comes to raising the right kind of money from the right avenues?
Yeah, to answer the other question which is connected is how much money should you raise? Because that drives where do you go to raise it and everything else. I would say every entrepreneur should keep an 18 to 24 month window, and if you find the right partner and the money is a little less, or the terms are a little off, take the right partner over the valuation and terms. And then if the money is a little less, calibrate your business so that you can have it stretch out for 18, 24 months, and then go back to raise the next round with something that you've proven, with partners that are behind you.
All right, Radhika, thank you very much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you very much for having us.
That's all the time we could manage to pack into this panel discussion here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any questions for the experts on today's panel or experts like them, do remember to write in to us. We love hearing from you. Our contact details coming up on your screens in just a moment. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.